Story number 1. Wrong address. I pulled up to the address just as the afternoon fog started rolling through the neighborhood. It was one of those gated communities in suburban Atlanta where every house looks like it costs more than I'll make in 10 years. The kind of place where people have circular driveways and landscaping that requires a full-time crew. I checked the package label twice against the mailbox. The name didn't match. The box said Marcus Hendry, but the mailbox had Tillman on it in those brass letters. It happens sometimes, people accepting packages for neighbors or relatives, but I'd been doing weekend courier work long enough to know you're supposed to verify. I grabbed the box and walked up the driveway. Before I even reached the door, it opened. A man in his 40s stood there, well-dressed in a button-down and khakis, smiling like he'd been waiting specifically for me. Not just waiting for a package, waiting for me. "Delivery for Marcus Hendry," I said, holding up the box so he could see the label. "That's perfect, thank you." He reached for it immediately. I pulled it back slightly. "The name on your mailbox says Tillman." "Right, yes." His smile didn't change. "Marcus is my brother-in-law. He's staying with us for a while. I'm accepting his mail." It was a reasonable explanation. I'd heard variations of it dozens of times. But something about the way he said it felt rehearsed, too smooth. And he was standing too close to the doorway, filling the frame in a way that felt deliberate. Behind him, I could see into the garage. The door was open, and there was a sharp chemical smell drifting out. Fresh paint maybe, or some kind of solvent. It was strong enough to make my eyes water slightly. "I just need to make sure it's going to the right person," I said. "I understand completely." He kept that same calm tone, almost soothing, like he was talking to a child. "I can show you ID if that helps. Marcus isn't here right now, but I'm authorized to accept his packages." Happens all the time. The fog was getting thicker. I could barely see the street behind me anymore. I wanted this interaction to be over. "Okay," I said, and handed him the box. He took it, turned it over in his hands like he was examining it, then looked back at me. "You're here pretty late in the day." "Weekend routes run until 6. Right. He stepped out onto the porch, still holding the package. "Do you cover this neighborhood regularly?" I was already turning back toward my van. "Depends on the week." But he followed me, not quickly, not aggressively, just walking behind me down the driveway at the same pace I was walking, still holding the box. "I asked because we're expecting another delivery," he said. "Probably next week. I wanted to make sure you'd be the one bringing it." I didn't respond. I just kept walking. My van was parked at the curb, maybe 20 feet away, but the fog made it look farther. The whole street felt muffled and distant. "What days do you usually work?" he asked. "It varies." I reached my van and grabbed the door handle. His hand closed over mine on the handle, not violently, not yanking or pulling, just placing his hand on top of mine and holding the door shut. He was still smiling, that same pleasant smile. "I really want to make sure you're our regular driver," he said. "You seem very professional." My heart started hammering. I pulled on the handle, but he was stronger, and he wasn't letting go. "I need you to let go of the door," I said. "Just one more second." His voice was still calm, still friendly. "I want to get your information for the next delivery." Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned my head and saw a second person coming out of the house. Younger, maybe late 20s, wearing a hoodie. They had a phone in their hand, raised and pointed directly at me. Not talking, not saying anything, just filming. The man's grip on the door handle tightened. I didn't think. I just shoved him as hard as I could. He stumbled back half a step, and I lunged across to the passenger side, climbing over the center console and throwing myself into the driver's seat. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. The man was coming toward the driver's side door now, no longer smiling. The person with the phone was moving closer too, still filming. I threw the van into reverse and hit the gas. There was a horrible scraping sound as the back corner of my van caught the decorative fence at the edge of the driveway. I didn't care. I cranked the wheel, shifted into drive, and accelerated down the street. My phone was in the cup holder. I grabbed it and called dispatch, trying to keep my voice steady and failing completely. This is Unit 47. I just had a situation at the Hendry delivery on Oakmont Drive. The customer, he wouldn't let me leave. Someone was filming me. I need to report this. There was a pause. Then the dispatcher said, "What address?" I told her. Another pause, longer this time. "Okay, I need you to return to the depot immediately. Don't make any more stops. What's going on?" "That package was flagged about an hour ago. We've been trying to reach all the drivers. The sender doesn't exist. It's a fake account." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. What was in it? "We don't know yet." But 2 other couriers reported similar encounters this week, different addresses, same neighborhood. Both times, the person accepting the package tried to delay them, asked questions about their routes and schedules. I was out of the neighborhood now, back on the main road. The fog was thinner here. I could see other cars, normal traffic, people going about their Saturday errands. "What do you mean, similar encounters?" "One of the drivers got spooked and took the package back. We opened it at the depot. It was just newspaper, weighted down to feel like something real, and a small tracking device taped to the inside." I felt cold. They were tracking us. "Looks that way. Police are involved now. Just get back here, okay? Don't stop anywhere." I drove back to the depot going exactly the speed limit, checking my mirrors every few seconds. I kept expecting to see a car following me, but there was nothing. Just normal traffic, just regular people. When I got back, my supervisor had me write down everything I could remember. The man's face, his clothes, the layout of the house, the person with the phone. They made copies of my delivery logs for the past month. They told me not to worry, that it was being handled, that I did the right thing by leaving. But they also told me they were reassigning my weekend route. Someone else would cover that neighborhood from now on. I asked if they caught anyone. My supervisor said the police went to the address, but the house was empty. No furniture, no people. Just that chemical smell and some paint cans in the garage. The name on the mailbox was fake too. No one named Tillman had ever lived there. I still do courier work on weekends. Different neighborhoods now, different routes, but I check every name twice, and I never hand over a package if something feels wrong. And sometimes, when I'm driving through fog, I think about that man's hand on my door handle. How calm he was, how ready. And I think about the other drivers who reported similar encounters, the ones who came before me. I wonder if any of them didn't get away. Story number 2, Helpful Neighbor. I moved into the 3rd floor walk-up on a Thursday evening in October. The rain had started around 4 and hadn't let up. I was hauling the last box up the stairs when the guy from 3B stepped out of his apartment. He was maybe 50, balding, wearing a polo shirt tucked into jeans. He asked if I needed help. I said I was all set. He introduced himself as Derek, said he'd been in the building 6 years. I told him my name, mentioned I'd just relocated from California for work. He nodded, asked what I did. I said, accounting. He said that was steady work. The conversation felt normal, neighborly. I mentioned I needed to install a deadbolt this weekend. The landlord had said tenants could add their own as long as we didn't damage the frame. Derek said he had a drill and some hardware left over from another project. Said he could do it tonight if I wanted. Saved me a trip to the hardware store. I hesitated for maybe 2 seconds. Then I said, sure, that would be great. He seemed like he was just being friendly. That's what neighbors do in smaller buildings, I thought. Not like California, where I'd lived in my complex for 3 years and knew maybe 2 people by name. He went back to his apartment and returned 5 minutes later with a cordless drill, a deadbolt still in its package, and a small toolbox. I let him in and gestured to the door. He set everything down and got to work. I went into the bedroom to keep unpacking boxes. I could hear the drill starting and stopping. The sound was sharp and metallic. It went on longer than I expected, but I didn't know anything about installing locks. I figured it just took time. He called out once to ask if I had a broom. I brought him one. There was a small pile of wood shavings on the floor. He swept them into his hand and put them in his pocket. Said he didn't want to leave a mess. I thanked him. He went back to work. When he finished, he demonstrated how the deadbolt worked, showed me how it locked and unlocked from the inside. It looked fine. I thanked him again, asked what I owed him. He waved me off, said to buy him a beer sometime. I said I would. He packed up his tools and left. I locked the deadbolt after he was gone. It turned smoothly. I felt better having it there. 2 days later, I was looking for the spare key to my apartment. The landlord had given me 2 keys when I signed the lease. I put one on my keychain and left the other in the kitchen drawer by the sink. I wanted to hide it somewhere better, maybe tape it under the mailbox downstairs. But when I opened the drawer, the key wasn't there. I checked the other drawers. I checked my coat pockets. I went through the boxes I still hadn't unpacked. I didn't find it. I assumed I'd put it somewhere else during the chaos of moving and forgot. It bothered me, but not enough to call the landlord for a replacement yet. That was a Saturday. On Monday night, I went to bed around 11. I've been working long days, still getting used to the new office. I fell asleep fast. I woke up at 2:14. I know because I looked at my phone right after. I'd heard something, a metallic sound. It took me a second to place it. Then I heard it again. The deadbolt. Someone was turning it from the hallway side. I didn't move. I was lying on my side facing the bedroom door, which was open. I could see partway down the hall toward the front door. The deadbolt made a soft click as it retracted. Then the handle started to turn. The door opened maybe 3 inches. The chain lock caught it. I'd put the chain on before bed out of habit. The door stayed open at that angle for a few seconds. I couldn't see anyone through the gap. Then it closed again, slowly. I heard footsteps in the hallway outside. They faded toward the stairs. I didn't get out of bed for a long time. I just lay there. My heart was pounding hard enough that I could feel it in my neck. When I'd finally moved, I got up and went to the front door. The deadbolt was unlocked. I locked it again. Then I dragged the desk chair from the bedroom and wedged it under the door handle. I sat on the couch for the rest of the night with the lights on. In the morning, I examined the deadbolt. I didn't know what I was looking for at first. Then I crouched down and looked at it from the side. The mechanism was facing the wrong way. The part that should have been on the interior side was on the exterior. It was installed backwards. Someone with the right key could unlock it from the hallway. I didn't go to work. I put on my jacket and went down the fire escape in the rain. It was slippery and I went slow. When I got to the street, I called the police from the sidewalk. 2 officers came within 20 minutes. I told them what happened. They went upstairs and checked the hallway. They knocked on Derek's door. No one answered. They said there was no sign of forced entry, but they took pictures of the lock. One of them pointed out scratches around the cylinder. Fresh ones, like someone had been trying different keys. I called the landlord while the officers were still there. He showed up 30 minutes later. He's older, maybe 65. He listened to me explain everything. When I mentioned the neighbor in 3B, his face changed. He looked at the officers, then back at me. He said the previous tenant had broken her lease 4 months early. She'd filed a restraining order against the man in 3B. The landlord didn't know all the details, but she'd claimed he'd been coming into her apartment while she was asleep. She woke up one night and saw someone standing in her bedroom doorway. She'd started staying at a friend's place and moved out 2 weeks later. The landlord said he'd tried to evict Derek after that, but the restraining order expired and she didn't pursue it further. Without her cooperation, there wasn't enough to break his lease. The landlord said he should have told me. He looked like he meant it. The officers said they'd follow up. They told me to get the lock replaced immediately and to call if I saw Derek in the hallway. The landlord said he'd pay for a locksmith. He also said I could break my lease without penalty if I wanted to leave. I'm still here. It's been 11 days. I had all the locks changed. I put a security bar on the door at night. I haven't seen Derek. His car is gone from the street. One of the other tenants said he thinks Derek is staying somewhere else for a while. but I hear footsteps in the hallway sometimes. They stop outside my door. I don't know if it's him or just another tenant. I started sleeping with my phone in my hand. The chair stays wedged under the door handle every night. I don't know if he'll come back. I don't know what he was planning to do if the chain hadn't been on. No one has been able to tell me that. Story number 3. Closed trail. I pulled into the trailhead lot a little after noon. The heat was already thick, that dry kind that sits in your lungs, but I'd done this loop enough times that I knew where the shade would be. 6 miles through the Red Rock Canyon. Same route I'd taken maybe a dozen times since moving to Sedona last year. I teach 2nd grade, and summer break means I can hit the trails during the week when they're quieter. I was adjusting my pack straps when a man in a ranger shirt walked over from the trail entrance. Tan uniform shirt, wide-brimmed hat, sunglasses. He had that weathered look people get from working outdoors. "Morning," he said. "You heading up the main trail?" "That's the plan." He shook his head. "We've got it closed about a mile in. Rockfall maintenance. Should have put up a sign at the lot. Sorry about that." He gestured toward the east side of the parking area. "There's an alternate route that'll loop you back around. Less scenic, but it's open. Comes out right back here." I glanced at the main trailhead. No closure sign, no caution tape. But rangers don't always have time to mark everything properly, especially in a park this size. "How long is the alternate?" I asked. "About the same. Maybe a little shorter." He pointed toward a narrow dirt path I'd never noticed before, partially hidden by scrub brush. "Follow that for about 20 minutes, then take the left fork when it splits. You'll see the markers." "Okay. Thanks for letting me know." He nodded and walked back toward a service road on the far side of the lot. I watched him go, then headed for the alternate trail. It felt a little odd that he hadn't been standing at the actual trailhead with a sign, but I figured he was making rounds, catching people as they arrived. He knew the area better than I did. The path was narrower than I expected, dusty, less maintained. I didn't see any other hikers, but that wasn't unusual for a weekday. The sun pressed down, and I took a long drink from my water bottle. My throat already felt coated with fine red dust. About 15 minutes in, I started noticing how quiet it was. On the main trail, there were always birds. Jays mostly, and the occasional hawk. Here, nothing. Just the scrape of my boots on stone and the faint rustle of dry brush when the wind picked up. I reached the fork he'd mentioned and took the left path. It narrowed even more, hemmed in by rock walls on both sides. The shade was good, at least, but something about the silence was starting to feel wrong. I stopped and pulled out my phone to check the trail map I'd downloaded. No signal, which was normal, but when I opened the map, this path wasn't on it. That should have been my sign to turn around. I kept going. I told myself the map was outdated, that the Park Service had probably cut this route recently. I'd already been walking for 20 minutes. It had to loop back soon. The path got tighter. The rock walls closed in until I was walking through what felt more like a crack in the stone than an actual trail. Then it opened into a small clearing, a dry wash surrounded by steep red rock on 3 sides. Dead end. I stood there for a moment, confused. No trail markers, no way forward, just a box canyon with walls too steep to climb. I turned around. The man in the ranger shirt was standing about 30 feet behind me. I hadn't heard him approach. He wasn't wearing his sunglasses anymore, and I could see his face clearly. He was younger than I'd thought, maybe mid-30s. He was holding a coil of rope in both hands, feeding it slowly through his fingers. My stomach dropped. "This isn't a real trail," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. He didn't say anything. He just kept coiling the rope, his eyes on me. I looked at his shirt again. No badge, no name tag, no radio clipped to his belt. Nothing that would identify him as actual park staff. "I'm meeting someone," I said. "They're waiting for me at the lot." He took a step forward. I had bare mace on my hip. I'd carried it on every hike since a friend got charged by a dog on a trail near Flagstaff. I'd never used it. My hands were shaking as I unclipped the canister. "Stay back," I said. He took another step. I sprayed. The mace shot out in a wide cloud, and I didn't wait to see if it hit him. I bolted to the right, toward the least steep section of the rock wall, and started climbing. Thorny brush tore at my arms and legs, but I didn't stop. I could hear him behind me, coughing, swearing, but I didn't look back. The rock was loose, crumbling under my hands. I grabbed at anything I could reach, roots, branches, chunks of stone, and hauled myself upward. My lungs burned. My fingers were bleeding. I didn't care. I broke through the brush onto a wider ledge and kept scrambling. The slope evened out, and suddenly I was on flat ground again, standing on the main trail. The real one. I could see the markers, the worn dirt path, the footprints of other hikers. There was a family about 50 yards ahead. 2 parents, 3 kids. I ran toward them, my legs shaking so badly I almost fell. "Call 911, I said. "Please." "There's a man. He's not a ranger. He..." The father pulled out his phone. The mother put her arm around me. I was shaking too hard to explain properly. I kept trying to point back toward where I'd come from, but I couldn't remember the exact spot. Everything looked the same. The rangers arrived fast. 2 of them, a man and a woman, both in full uniform with radios and badges and everything the other man hadn't been wearing. I tried to describe where the dead-end wash was, but I couldn't give them clear directions. I'd been too panicked on the way out. They searched for over an hour. They didn't find him, but they found his truck. An old pickup parked on a service road about a mile from the main lot. The back seat had a ranger shirt, the kind you could buy online, a coil of rope, and a phone. The female ranger told me later that the phone had photos on it, women hiking alone. Different trails, different times of day. She said there were at least 9. She asked if I'd filed a report after any previous hikes, if I'd noticed anyone following me before. I hadn't. None of the other women had either. They never found him. They put out alerts, checked nearby towns, ran the truck's plates. It had been reported stolen 2 weeks earlier from a rental lot in Phoenix. I still hike, but not alone, and not on trails I don't know. Sometimes I think about how easy it was to trust him, how reasonable his explanation sounded, how I didn't question it until it was almost too late. I think about those other women in the photos. I wonder if they know.